Hello and welcome to this review of The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. So first of all, let's just have a brief word about the cover. It is such a beautiful cover. Look at that image of a torn book around the edge, and with the actual title, it's got a hand-looking script. You can see that it's been artificially smudged in places to make it feel more authentic. What do you mean the letters are reversed and you can't read it? Wow, that must be the recent Android update, which refuses to let me put mirror image off on the new updated version, brought to you by Android, making life harder for you and potentially introducing an app that you will have to pay for to do what you used to be able to do easily before. Say hello, Miller. Miller's helping me with this review. So I bought this book sight unseen off the shelf, and for me buying a new book is a little bit of a rarity. I read fast, as has been remarked upon many times. The cost of a new book is high, and for the cost of a new book I could get 4 or 5, maybe as many as 20 second-hand books. So this one really pulled me in, not just the beauty of the cover, shoulders are good, but the description. Let me read the description from the back. Hidden across England and Scotland live 6 old book-eater families. The last of their lines, they exist on the fringes of society and subsist on a diet of stories and legends. And honestly, the book had me right there. But the next paragraph says, children are rare and their numbers have dwindled. So in Devon Fairweather's second child is born, a dreaded mind-eater, a perversion of her own kind, who consumes not stories but the minds and souls of humans. She flees before he can be turned into a weapon for the family or worse. Now, the first paragraph was great and it hooked me completely. So all too often I criticize and critique the people who write the backs of books. This one was masterful. This one was genius because it sold me on buying this book. And it's like, I'm a reader. I love books. Books are great. So obviously a book about readers or about things bookish is going to attract me. And because I was invested already after the first couple of paragraphs, by the end of it, I was already there. I was buying this book no matter what. So the third paragraph says, living among humans and finding prey for her son, Devon seeks a cure for his hunger, but time is running out, for her family want her back. And with every soul her son consumes, he loses a little more of himself. This is a story of escape, a mother's savage devotion, and a queer love that will electrify readers looking for something beguiling, thrilling, strange and new. That last paragraph would have set off all the warning bells for me, because books about mother's devotion often fall short for me. But by then I was fully invested by the notion of a whole subset of humanity living within humanity, and they eat books instead of normal organic stuff, food that we eat. Having added this to my reading list on Goodreads, I've discovered that most reviews seem to be 5 stars on the theme of OMG, I can't believe I love this book, it was amazing. I did not think this book was amazing. I thought it was good. I liked it. I'd give it 2-3 stars out of 5 on the Goodreads scale. I didn't feel like it rocked my world. I'm hesitant about being too critical about newish books, and this one is only copyrighted a couple of years ago, so we've got a brand new author. I believe this is her debut novel. I admire that she wrote a book at all, and I think she has got great future prospects. So any criticism of this book, I'm seriously not trashing Sunyi Dean, who I'd never heard of before I bought this book. I bought this book new. If I buy a brand new book, the revenue that the author has for me, I feel is entirely justifies me in being a bit critical over the thing I just purchased. So this book has some great bits. It's got some less great bits. It's got a few signs of being a new author. And reviewing it in my head, I feel like I have to separate it into separate sections. So The world building concept is absolutely great. It sure hooked me. I loved the idea of the book eaters living in society but not of society. I loved the development of the world society, and I could have used a lot more and a bit more finesse with it, but still it was good. We don't really actually learn that much about book eater society. We know it exists. But this book is indeed far more about a story of escape, a mother's savage devotion, blah, blah, blah. I was here for the book eating society, and I've got to say that I feel that the book failed me a little bit in that regard. So the other thing that you can review as a bit is the overall plot, which is okay. I don't love it. The backwards and forwards part on time tactic, especially I don't love. The timey-wimey stuff in books 90% of the time doesn't wow me. Here, in this particular one, we start out with Devon and her son Kai in the now, but in order to fill out the book eater society, we go back 15 years and then back to the now and then back 10 years and back to the now. And that's all we learn about the book eater society really is through the past. Come on, enough of the head. So the overall plot is very much escape. Devon and Kai, her son, are fleeing. We don't quite know what from at the beginning or what toward. We don't know what's happening exactly, but we know it's more complicated than it seems. So I enjoyed that plot. It kept me intrigued for the first 2/3, very much so. But the last third really fell down on plot for me personally. All those people going, OMG, I loved it. Perhaps they're a bit less sophisticated readers than me. I didn't love the last third. I saw it as being incredibly predictable. And while the writing throughout is quite nice, it became very mainstream, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Okay, another aspect of this book, character building, which I've got to say I found very, very shaky. It's not that the characters are bad, especially Devon. We see significant character change in Devon, but it doesn't feel significant in anyone else, and it does, if it even exists in other people, because of the timey-wimey stuff. It doesn't feel like character development. We just see a change from 15 years in the past when Devon was a little 5-year-old girl, and into the future when Devon's a grown woman with a child. So, oh, really? Does it have to be the head? No, it doesn't have to be the head. So character building. It does. Whatever. So the character development didn't seem real. Character change, yes. Development, not really. No one else except for Devon is really a bit player. And Kai doesn't have character development because he's a mind eater. So when he eats a new mind, he experiences the absorption of the knowledge of the other person. That's not quite character development. It's interesting. It's a plot tactic. It's got character and a whole heap of good things about it. But it's not character development. So I'd say that the character development was pretty average. Okay. Come on then. Come on. So, however, complaints aside, first 2/3 of the book I was really invested in and really engaged. I enjoyed it. I was interested in what we were hearing about the Book Eater Society, even though it was little bits and pieces. I was interested in Devon and Kai and their life. Once we've got the entire backstory to Devon's journey, well, I was honestly a bit disappointed. Book Eater Society has been developed by then as a 100% patriarchal, abusive society with no mitigating or redeeming features. And that started feeling very, very superficial to me. No society is 100% bad. Devon's experience might have been mostly bad, but making villains that are all evil and one is very one-dimensional, and it lost my interest fast, I'm afraid. Because of these elements of superficiality and lack of insight. In fact, a lot of what we learn about the Book Eater Society, we actually learn at the beginning of each chapter, you've got a little quote, and some of them are from George MacDonald, which absolutely, oh, you can't see. Oh, thank you, Google. You can't, actually absolutely thrilled me to have quotes from George MacDonald, who Princess and the Goblin, Princess and Curdie and the Goblin. I think he's a highly underrated author. I love the fact that Sunyi Dean quoted from him. The other quotes are not real quotes. They're quotes from a character inside the novel called Amarinda Patel, who's a journalist who's captured by the families and ends up writing a sort of unofficial biography of them. And so again, development of the whole society that was really the thing that attracted me to the book, lacking. Okay. At this point, I've got to wonder, young adult or not young adult? Is it or isn't it young adult book? It was in the fantasy section in the bookstore, but that might not mean much. The author is very young, so maybe she's writing it as an adult book, but it just reflects the age of the author. So it's not a young adult, maybe it's a new adult or a semi-adult or whatever the other classifications are, or maybe it's just a reflection of the author herself. If so, I've got to say, on the very unlikely event that Sunyi Dean will ever watch this video, it's a beautiful book. You're doing a great job. I just hope you allow it to mature and not get stuck in this one narrative that is not quite adult. Like some people, Sarah J. Maas, I'm looking at you. Some people, their writing never actually develops. I really hope this authors do. So, the lack of depth to the motivations and the society. This society is meant to be hundreds of years old, but it just becomes a stereotypical bad guy. That felt young adult to me. And the writing, which became more and more superficial, the characters became more and more one-dimensional. And I think it is the superficiality that made me feel increasingly disconnected from the book. I'd put it down. I wasn't thrilled about having to pick it up again to keep reading. At the end, I just finished it to finish it. The bad guys are bad. The main character is victimized by the nasty patriarchy, and the bad, nasty guys are very, very bad because they're bad guys, and every novel needs a bad guy, and so the bad guys are really bad because... just gave me a headache. Gave me a headache how unrealistically... There's one tiny line or paragraph trying to justify how much of a bad guy Ramsay is, and it fails on every level. Anyway, far into the book, we learned that the book eaters have some characteristics that set them apart from humans. They are not imaginative, they're not able to create, they're not good at being able to see things outside the box. And this is one reason why the book eaters rely on human society to provide the novels that they themselves can't write. But we're given this information very late, and it feels like too little too late. It feels like a patch-up job to excuse or excuse behaviours that are short-sighted and superficial. It feels like about this way through the book, some copy reader said, well, why so-and-so? And so the author just threw in this quick patch as an explanation. Okay, so I made a note in the last third of the book. I was saying this is really dragging. I can manage a page or two before getting bored. It is very predictable. Bad guy's bad because he is the prototypical bad guy, and he has to be bad because the plot needs bad guy, and it was a yawn. It was a complete yawn fest. On page 263, by now I had only a mild interest in how it turns out. The book eaters are no longer a part of the book except as stereotypical bad guys. I'm essentially reading to get read, especially since Devon et al. Seem ludicrously naive about a few points to the reader. So, coming up to the big crescendo, which I'm not going to spoiler because many people love this book. You might be a person who loves this book. It's got many things to recommend it. I'm sure not everyone is as blasé about it as me. So there's this huge crescendo and we're building up to it. I found it intensely, insanely predictable. Every plot twist that the protagonists didn't see coming just left me shaking my head because I'd seen it coming so long ago. There's a bit of a fight scene. There is, as the back of the book says, a little bit of a queer love. So if you're looking for a book that ticks that box, this ticks that box. As a fantasy, it's got a lot of good things. Will suit younger or less critical readers, I'm pretty sure. One thing I've got to say about it, though, is the ending was really good. After the big hoo-ha final crescendo, which finally did drag me in. It started out being stereotypical and predictable, but it was still well written and it was still fun, and there was a bit of fighting, and there's a good end to the main bad guy, though I'm sure there's plenty of other bad guys. I enjoyed it. The ending was really good, and the actual end of this book, well, doing the thing that all publishers have to do these days, leave it open to becoming a series, with the next in the series coming along. Kudos to the author. This story arc ended. It was an actual end to an actual story arc, and I don't need to read the next book, which is doubtless on its way, unless I really feel like it. And I'm not sure I will feel like it. I enjoyed it, but unless I find out that the next book is more sophisticated, more adult, and has more Book Eater Society, I might well not continue on. And so I was very satisfied by the ending. If it does continue and I do read it, I will be getting it from the library. I would love to see the world building expanded instead of diminished, because throughout this book the world building started strong and diminished as we went through. If I get the next one from the library and see that the world building is expanded, I'll probably end up purchasing it. And if Sunyi Dean keeps on writing in this universe, fingers crossed, it could become really spectacular. Once again, I'm not trying to be cruel to the author here. She's a modern young author starting her career. I think her career could be spectacular, and I hope it is. But to me, The Book Eaters was not a spectacular 5-star read. It had all the potential to be one in terms of world building and concepts. It has all the potential to increase as the author increases in her capacity to become 5-star books. But in the meantime, I just say it's a fairly pleasant, nice little fantasy with a few good concepts that feels more like it has potential rather than it's truly achieved its life goal. Now I'm going to go away and convince Miller to not sit on my head anymore. Have a great day. Love to hear comments. Please don't trash me for not loving this book if it's your favourite book ever. I feel my points are valid. They're at least valid for me, and if you disagree, by all means, tell me why.